welcome to the YouTube channel, Simona. I brought you on because I wanted you to help us with our behavior and the behavior of our kids. So, without further ado, do you want to introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are, what you do, who you teach, who you interact with, all the things that you do on social media? And I'll put her social media right there for you guys to go follow.
Hi everyone, Simona. I'm a behavior analyst and an autism consultant, as well as a mom of a 2.5-year-old. I am the founder of Aid Consulting, where I help parents navigate autism and behavioral challenges.
Ooh, I like that. Sound like you practiced that before. That's really cool. So, Simona, you could follow her on as Aid Consulting, right?
Yeah.
So you could follow someone on Aid Consulting and you get more practical advice. But here on this YouTube channel, I try to give practical advice, my opinions, based on my experience, my knowledge. But we have some questions that we want to ask you to help us because you're the subject matter expert right now. So we want to get your take on these questions. The first question that I have for you, Simona, I shouldn't say we. Let's focus on me, right? I strongly feel like spare the rod, spoil the child, right? But I don't mean it in a way of any physical abuse or anything like that. I just mean like kids need to be disciplined. I feel like my son, as I bring him up, he needs to be disciplined. He needs to know how to handle certain situations. So, can you give us some practical advice on how we can discipline our kids the right way without it being a dictatorship type of discipline or physical discipline? But what do you think is the best way to discipline a child, let's say between the ages of 3 and 7, who may be acting out? What do you think is the best way to discipline that child?
So I think a lot of times as parents or just adults in society, when we think of discipline, we think of what happens after the child has already acted out. But really, we should be thinking about it proactively. So, what things can we put in place so that the child doesn't even feel the need to behave in that manner to communicate what they're feeling or get their needs met? So, what I recommend first and foremost is setting boundaries. Saying what you mean and meaning what you say. So we're not making empty threats that they know we're not going to follow through with, and we know we're not going to follow through with, right? We are, setting it up so that our instructions are easy to follow. We're not giving them a long, lengthy lecture or spiel. We're making it as clear and concise as possible, as easy as possible for them to understand. If I tell you, okay, in 5 minutes, TV time is over and we have to go take a shower and get ready for bed, I mean 5 minutes, and these are the steps that are going to follow. It really just boils down to developing trust, and it's trust in those little things. So when daddy gives me an instruction, even if I try to run away, I know he's going to come back and follow through. And it doesn't mean follow through with an iron fist, but it means he's going to get done what needs to get done. Or if daddy tells me, X, Y, and Z is going to be the consequence of this, I know he means that's exactly what's going to happen. Or if he tells me, first I need to clean up these toys and then we're going to go get ice cream, bet your bottom dollar, I'm getting ice cream.
Okay, now that sounds really good, right? Now the perfect scenario, right? Like, okay, my son Ramea, we're going to, you're gonna get 5 more minutes of TV time, and then we have to go take a shower. Let's use that example, right? Oh, but Dad, can I have 10? No. Okay, 7? Alright, 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then 7 minutes come. Okay, Remy, I'm gonna put on the timer. 7 minutes comes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't really throw tantrums, but he's
Yeah.
visibly upset.
Hmm. And that's okay.
Okay.
So it's okay to be upset. I understand that you're upset, but this is what needs to get done. So I'm gonna be there for you. I'm gonna comfort you. I'm gonna check in and be like, it's okay, etc., etc. But 7 minutes, timer went off. We had an agreement. I'm following through. And with consistency, it's gonna get easier. So if at that 7 minutes he's used to, and daddy's like, okay, 2 more minutes. Okay, 3 more minutes. You've just eroded that trust. So the next time you say 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, he's learned I can fuss and daddy will give in or daddy will cave, versus I can fuss and daddy will help me to regulate. He'll help me through it, but daddy says what he means and means what he says.
I like that. Okay. So it sounds like the parent has to be disciplined while disciplining the kids.
Exactly.
That is dope. Okay, so to be honest, I could see that working because I see the other part of it. I see where I would say 7 minutes, and then I come and he say 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, and I'll be like, just to not have the back and forth, I'll just be like, all right, but after 2 minutes, that's it. Mm-hmm. So then I move the goalposts and move, as you said, eroded that trust. So yeah. It definitely seems like it needs to be a consistent, okay, once I say this, it's this. And that is trust, right? It's like you can have the integrity knowing that, okay, if somebody tells you something, if you say something to somebody that you're going to do it, whether good or bad, you're going to do it. They know for sure you're going to get it done.
And I mean, as they get older, it's okay to have that negotiation and that back and forth and give them kind of that autonomy to be able to decide, well, no, I can't do it in 5 minutes, but I could do it in 10. I think that's totally okay. But in the early when we're trying to establish those boundaries and that trust, you really want to try to be as consistent as possible.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. So that's with the discipline, right? And this ties into something else that I thought of. Like, so what, as I speak on manhood and I speak on, being a man, being a father, etc., right? Back in the Caribbean, like we were from Trinidad and Tobago, we'll have many times when you're younger, our fathers or other male figures around would say, don't cry. That's nothing to cry. Even my mom might have said, that's nothing to cry for. We're crying for. You want something to cry for. Mm-hmm. So there are certain things that happen, and I strongly feel, not that I don't want you to cry. There are certain things I don't feel it warrants you crying for. And sometimes I can be honest and say, I'm being silly. I'm being just like what was taught to me. And other times I feel like there's no way you're crying for that. So I guess explain that a little bit more for me, especially being like a 5-year-old processing those feelings and genuinely probably feeling sorrow and crying. But I think it's not a big deal where it might have been a big deal for them.
So one thing to note about behaviors is that it's always communicative. I guess the trouble comes in, or the problem comes in, where we kind of look at our little ones and we're like, well, that's nothing to cry for. Why are you behaving like that? But really, it's you could think of it as out of the inability to communicate. Remember, their little brains are still developing. They're still learning how to describe what they're feeling. Sometimes they might not have the words, or they might not be able to access the words in that moment because they're so overwhelmed by the emotion. Hence the crying. So when you can kind of take a step back and not look at it as there's nothing to cry for, versus what is my child trying to communicate to me in this moment through this behavior, it helps you kind of clarify, I guess, where the need is and then how to help them meet it. So for example, this happened just earlier today. My daughter was, overtired, wanted something. I said no, cue tantrum, and she's screaming at the top of her lungs. My
Not my
response to
princess. Why didn't you give it to her?
my response to that was, I'm completely calm. I'm not reacting. I'm not trying to talk you out of it and say, no, 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 don't cry. There's nothing to cry for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right there with you. And I'm simply modeling the language for her. So she learns in this moment, I don't need to scream. I can say, I'm upset. I'm angry. So
Mm-hmm.
when she calms down and she repeats, I'm angry, I'm like, okay, I understand that you're angry, but X, Y, and Z is what needs to happen right now. Do you need some help? And she'll say, yeah. Or I'm like, what do you need right now? And she might say, I just need a hug. I hug, we co regulate, and then I immediately follow up with exactly what I asked her to do in the first place. So it's not that we go through that whole process and she gets out of whatever it is I'm saying. It's, I've taught you in this situation, when I feel like this, I can communicate it this way. And mommy's here to support you through that process.
Right.
And then we're going along as we should,
So
based on whatever the instruction was.
you use the word just now, co-regulate.
Mm-hmm.
What? Break that down a little bit for me before we go into the next question.
Okay, yeah. So co-regulation is adult and child working together to help the child regulate their emotions, or I wouldn't even say calm down, because regulation doesn't necessarily mean calming down. It means having your energy or arousal levels match whatever activity or demand in the moment.
Yeah.
So in an adult context, some mornings I might wake up extra tired, and to regulate, I might need an extra cup of coffee. Or another morning I might wake up and I'm super anxious and I might need to work out to
Right.
bring my energy levels down, or whatever the case might be. So it's really just to match whatever is required. And
Okay.
so it's just adults helping the child,
I like that.
that
Okay. All right.
process.
I'm gonna co-regulate a little bit more. I'm gonna start using that too, and just like I'm like, you need to co-regulate yourself for me, or we
Well,
need to co-regulate.
yeah. So you're
We
being
need to
doing it
co-regulate
with
your
the emotions. Yeah.
emotions. What about before we go to the last thing, right, on this? So I see you're having really big feelings right now. What do you think about that? That has been going around social media with people telling the kids, I see you have really big feelings. Is that language normal and something that you would say is, you know,
I guess culturally, it's not really something that we would say or gravitate towards saying.
right,
And I understand like where it's coming from. It's a way to break down that emotion, um, so that the child can understand. But I think a lot of our kiddos actually understand way more than we give them credit for.
right,
So I just simply use the word. So like you're frustrated, I'm frustrated,
right,
right?
yeah,
Or, I'm angry right now, I need a minute. And like you can even model kind of what's needed in that moment. So I might say to her, like, I'm annoyed right now. I need to step away. I need 5 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you actually, so then she would kind of know whenever she feels like that, she might need to step away because
It's
she,
okay to say that. Yeah.
okay. I like that. All right. I'll tell you also want to know her stuff, though. All right. Okay. Okay. Let's get into the other question. Okay. So the next question, I have spoken about this in my book, What in the Fatherhood. And it's something I believe is very important, but I'd like to hear your perspective on it. So, how can fathers build strong, positive relationships with their children from an early age, in your opinion?
I think one of the easiest but most underrated ways to build strong relationships with your children is to play with them.
Ooh, to play with them. Okay.
And adults really don't do that enough. And I get it. Like, parenthood is tough. We have 5 million things going on all at once, all the time. But carving out that, like, one on one time where you're disconnected and you're focused on your kid,
Mm-hmm.
and you're playing not necessarily how you want to play, but how they want to play.
That's it, though. That's it. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
And I say this to parents in my trainings all the time. So play is not what color is this and let's count it and what number is this and put it in here and no, it has to be this way. From the time you start with question after question, instruction after instruction, demand after demand, the kid's like, okay, I've had
Mm-hmm.
enough of this, leave me alone, let me go do my thing. And that erodes the connection and the trust that we're trying to build. But when you're there with them and they get to choose and they get to direct, and you're being silly and making faces and making noises and doing all the things that they enjoy, they get to see you as not just mommy or daddy who is always telling me what to do and always
Yeah.
taking off the TV and telling me I have to bathe and whatever else.
Why are you
They,
throwing shots at me,
they
yo?
see you see you as the cool, fun parent, right? Who
Yeah.
also enjoys the same things that they do. So then when it comes to those instructions that they might not necessarily want to do or enjoy doing, they're a little bit more willing because they already have that connection with you.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And that's something I've been trying to do because I would say it's not necessarily like let's come and go count, right? But I'll say let's go outside and kick a ball.
Yeah.
You might want to stay inside and play dinosaurs or cars or dragons or something. I'm like, you know what? All right, if that's what you want to do, I guess that's what we'll do. It hurts my back because I have to go on my knees and I have to bend over and I have to do all these crazy things that he want me to do.
Right. And so sometimes you have to get a little bit creative too. Like what happens if you like lay on the floor and he builds the, I don't know, the dragon lair on your back?
While I take a
Well,
nap.
well, not necessarily nap, but
Yeah, no,
it's
I get it.
comfortable for both of you.
Yeah. No, that's a really good. Hey, fathers, y'all heard that? That's really good practical advice right there. Sound the alarm right here. Sound it. That's a good tip. I like that one. All right, let's get into the next question. So back to it's a little bit along the lines about the discipline and that type of thing, right? So you seem I like the be consistent, build that trust, right? When your kid is acting out, sometimes I've heard people say having rational conversations like, "Hey, don't do this because this and this." And you try to explain the situation is not the best thing all the time. People say that kids, when they're feeling those emotions, they don't like all of that is they don't care about none of that, right? So I guess what is your take on having trying to have a conversation with your kid when they're having big feelings or frustrated, as you would say?
It goes similar sentiments. When it comes to having that conversation, I think timing is everything.
Mm-hmm.
So from a physiological, neurological standpoint, from the time they are at that level of upset, tantrum, frustration, whatever the case might be, their
Yeah.
brain literally cannot process what you're trying to explain to them in the moment,
Okay.
right? So at that point, and I like to say, once they get to the tantrum point, it's already too late, right? So at
Right.
that point, your focus should just be again regulation, getting them back to
Co-regulate.
right, getting them back to a reasonable standpoint, and then you can take it from there. I wouldn't even in that entire even once they're calm from that point of dysregulation, I would not recommend trying to have that conversation then either. At that point, I would focus on whatever it is triggered the tantrum in the first place, whether it was, them trying to get out of you telling them to do something, or
Mm-hmm.
whether, it was to get your attention or to get access to something that they wanted, whatever the case might be. And handle that part of it first. And then later on, when they come, I'll say, hey, remember when X, Y, and Z happened? If this happens again, here's what we can do about it.
Gotcha.
And I'm teaching that replacement. We call it a replacement behavior. So this is what you did. This is what you should do instead.
So you bring it back after when they're calmer. You bring it
Yeah.
back. Okay. And when
And
you're
also that, sorry to cut you, but that depends on like the child's capacity to understand what you're explaining as well.
okay, that's what I was about. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that depends on the developmental level of the child. Like if we're talking about a 1, 2 year old, like I'm not even gonna bother to bring that up again,
Mm.
just because they're not gonna process it. It's like, yeah, there's not gonna be
But
much.
even at a higher level, you might still have to. It's not like it's gonna cut the behavior is gonna cut right there. You have to be consistent again, reminding them that hey, whenever this happens, you can do this instead, right? It's
Yep,
practice makes
exactly.
permanent. Is they're never gonna be perfect, but they'll eventually get it.
Agreed.
Okay, I like that. Okay, all right, all right. Um, Again, along the lines of discipline. So fathers looked at as this authoritative figure, especially when it comes to discipline, right? Especially, the phrase, don't let me call your father or wait till your father get home. It's like, ah, right? But how can fathers be authoritative without being harsh or aggressive in their approach?
Yeah, so I don't know about you, but from a mom perspective, I would prefer that my child not listen out of fear, right? I would want them to listen because, they have that connection and that trust and all of the things that we talked about before. So, really, it's just about consistency with that, establishing that trust so that they know when I tell you this is the consequence, I mean it. It's taking the time to connect with the child, involving them in your everyday activities so that they see like you're essentially modeling the behavior that
Hmm.
you want them to exhibit.
Yeah,
Like they're literal sponges. They observe everything. So you have to be almost hyper aware of your behavior as well.
yeah, I agree. There's something I said with kids, they believe half of what they hear, but most of what they see. So when they see you do it, that's the so I would say for me personally, I would have a sterner or more stern, I don't know the English, right? More stern voice when speaking or correcting
Mhm.
my son. Now, me being stern, I don't look at it as me being harsh because I'm not saying anything that's demeaning or anything that's tearing him down. But I am stern in my approach because I want him to know when I want it to be a line between me being serious and when I'm playing. So when I'm serious, there's a certain voice, tone, pitch that I use, and when I'm, joking around, I'll use a certain tone, pitch, and sound because there's sometimes I'm joking around like, you know, come here, let me spank your butt, something like that, right? But it's jokes. But when I'm still when there's a voice, he knows that he's not joking. So I don't think I necessarily. It might sound aggressive to somebody else because we're in this big feelings, but it's honestly it's not coming from an aggressive place. It's just me trying to set the difference between the tones, pitch it, and even body
No, and
language.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think kids need boundaries. So he
Hmm.
needs to know, like, oh, I'm up against a boundary. Let me adjust my
Yeah,
behavior. And I think that's fine. When you cross over, though, into the realm of punishment, that's where things get sticky, right? Um, and punishment in any shape, form, or
time
fashion.
out, toys taken away,
Yeah.
TV time taken away. Okay,
So
break
the
that
thing
down then.
about, remember I said in the beginning, you want to try to be as proactive as possible.
Hmm.
So punishment is in and of itself reactive. It's after whatever's happened, then there's some consequence. But it doesn't necessarily get to the root cause of the behavior. So if you understand it from the communicative standpoint of there's some unmet need, he's trying to tell me something. What do I need to teach in this moment
Right.
versus he's behaving badly and I'm gonna, do something that he doesn't like,
Yeah.
right? it doesn't really get to the underlying need or missing skill that needs to be taught.
I like that.
All that he's learning is, if I do this, this is the consequence that I don't like. And it's not necessarily effective, because the thing about punishment is it has to happen. It has to be a guaranteed consequence every single time. So the minute he does that and you're not there to implement that consequence, or another adult is not implementing the same consequence, he essentially gets away with it. And
Right.
chances are he's going to do it again.
That's what you're saying.
Versus if you teach the skill that's missing and he, gets that need met, you're almost automatically teaching a replacement, teaching a better way to get whatever it is you're trying to get.
Okay.
Right?
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that.
So
That's true. I mean,
escalation of punishment is always like, there's always a better way. Actually, I have an analogy that I use in my trainings a lot. I'll share it with you. So, 2 scenarios, right?
mm-hmm.
You're driving on the highway, you go over the speed limit. There's a cop, he pulls you over, you get a ticket.
Right.
That's essentially a punishment for driving over the speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
Versus scenario, well, you drive, right, so that's the punishment.
Right.
And then next day you're passing, there's no cop, there's no camera. The day after that you're passing, there's no cop, there's no camera. By the third day, what you think is going to happen? You're running late, you have to pick up the kids. Yeah.
I'm gonna be speeding, yeah.
Back to speeding, right? Versus scenario 2, the government says, okay, we're going to be proactive. We're installing cameras and trackers in every single car that's on the nation's roads.
Mm-hmm.
If you stay within the speed limits, we're going to send you a check in the mail every month for $1,000. If you don't stay within the speed limit, no biggie, just no check.
Okay, yeah.
Which do you think would be
I
more
probably will
effective?
stay within the speed limit because I want that check. It's an
Right.
incentive to stay within the speed limit.
Right. So, in other words, you are rewarding or encouraging the behavior that you actually want to see versus reactively punishing what you do.
That's what you're saying. I like that. So it's proactive versus reactive. So the same thing applies to our kids.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for teaching me that, because I mean, yes, I can admit there are many times I'm reactive, and I try to be teaching and try to be, this is what you want to do, this is what you don't want to do. I try to like reinforce, hey, when I see something, hey, you did a really good job at doing this, you should be proud of yourself. But sometimes I react.
And I mean, that's normal. Like, we're human. We're not aiming for perfection here.
Yeah.
But I would say if we could aim for like 70-30, it would be enough consistency for them to get it.
Okay. I could do that. That's my homework for this, after this one. All right. Last and final question for our resident behavior analyst, because we're going to have her back on, especially when we see things happen. All right. But how can we as fathers, and again, this is for my men out there, all the mothers, this applies to you too, but I'm trying to get to the men. How can fathers help their children develop emotional intelligence and resilience? Again, because I'm raising a boy, I don't want my boy to be soft. I want him to be resilient. It's not soft in a manner of he can't be vulnerable, etc. But at the same time, it's not like a what you're crying for, but like, bro, you're gonna have to. Some things, like as you get older, some things you just can't bring down and cry for. We all do that. So how can I help build his emotional intelligence, develop that skill, and also make him more resilient to the struggles that he's gonna face and obstacles he's gonna face in life?
Yeah. So there are a few ways, and I think mostly what you're talking about is building up that tolerance to like
Yes.
frustration or being told no.
Yeah.
Like, those are things that are gonna
Yes.
come up, right?
Yes.
So the first one, and probably the biggest one, is model it.
Okay.
So in those moments where you're in traffic and
Why you got to
somebody
go there?
somebody's giving you a bad drive, or like there's just an unreasonable amount of traffic for no reason and he's in the back seat,
Yes.
that's your moment to be like, whew, I'm frustrated. Dig in your toolbox, do your deep breathing, like calm yourself down, talk yourself through it. Like, you know what? It's okay. Everything happens for a reason. Like, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
The minute you're like, oh my God, this traffic, I'm so fed up, blah, 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 blah. Or like, you let out your big old man sigh or whatever. Like, they're like, okay, noted. So next time they feel frustration, they start acting up and throwing their version of a tantrum. And you're like, no, you can't do that. But daddy, that's exactly what you did the other day in traffic. They might not have the words to say it, right? But you're essentially modeling that behavior.
Get
So
out of
you
my car. Jeez.
so you need to be aware of that. You also need to model the language. So let's say, he's playing with his magnet tiles or whatever, and he can't get this last one to stand up. And instead of, just acting out and pelting it away, like you model, I'm frustrated. A nice one I like to say, and my daughter actually started saying it back to me, I can do hard things.
Oh.
So I can't remember. I think I was trying to open like a jar or something, and I was in the kitchen, and I was literally just mumbling to myself like, "Why is it so hard to open?" And I just hear a little voice like, "You can do hard things, mommy." And I was like, "You know what? You're right. I can."
Yo, that's crazy. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So you model the language, you model the behavior, you model the strategy. They're always looking and listening. And then the next thing about it is communicating openly, like letting them know it's okay to feel these feelings. Here's how you handle it. And
Mm-hmm.
when they do, you let them know that you're looking and you're listening. And wow, I saw that you did that. That was so great. Praising them when they do it, rewarding their efforts.
Yeah.
Even if they like don't get through, like, wow, I saw that you tried really hard with that. Maybe next time try X, Y, and Z, or whatever the case may be.
I like that. Hey, that's yo, that's great advice right there. I like that. I like that a lot. And I mean, kudos to you because I definitely have been around you, of course, and I see how you are. And you're not just seeing these things, you actually live these things. So appreciate you. Appreciate you for coming on here. Appreciate you for giving us all this practical advice that we could now go and apply and hopefully be consistent, build that trust, model, what's my co-regulate. Oh, hopefully we can co-regulate. But nah, for real, I really appreciate it. And you want to give where can everybody find you? Let them know what you're doing, so that you can go on to
Yeah.
continue doing it big and get more exposure. I'm not saying I'm a big YouTube channel, but you never know. Somebody might the right God always puts the right people eyes on these things. So
That's true. That's true. And before I say that, I do want to say also, as parents, give yourself grace too. We're not aiming for perfection again. Like, I have all this training and experience and tips and whatever, and sometimes I still lose it and like have to take a minute and come back and apologize and repair. Like, I'm sorry, I yelled. I'm always telling you not to yell. Like, So
yeah,
as parents, as adults, give yourself some grace too. Um, but yes,
100% agree with that. 100% because I feel like that as well, especially with me, myself, and Michelle, my wife. I keep telling her, give yourself grace. And it's easy to get down on yourself, right? Get down on yourself and feel like, yo, I'm the worst parent in the world. I can't believe I just snapped. I can't believe I just said that. I can't believe I didn't play with them when they were just trying to play, but I was trying to get something done in the kitchen and I shoot them away, or you know what I mean?
yeah,
So yeah, definitely give yourself grace because you're never going to be perfect, but they will always look at you
yeah.
like you're a
And
superman, superwoman.
even that in and of itself, like that, like I did something wrong or did something that you might not have liked, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I'll do better in the future. That is modeling like that emotional intelligence and that
Ah,
repair for them as
mhm.
well. So
Okay.
even when you mess up, apologize, fix it, actually try to do better in the future.
Change behavior, right? Not
Yeah.
just I'm sorry and then back yelling 2 minutes after you try to change. Okay. I got you. Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
But
so
yeah,
tell everybody where they can find you. Tell them what you do. We know you're a behavioral analyst. Let us know what you do. You know, you've been doing big things, helping people. You mentioned your course a couple of times. So just talk a little bit more about that, just so that everybody knows.
yeah. So I help families navigate autism and behavioral challenges. So we offer behavioral therapy in clinic, in school, and in home. And part of the in home involves parent coaching. So kind of like this virtual coaching. You come to me with your problems, I help you solve
You
it.
just got a free coaching. Hey, yo, cash out Simona at.
But yes, I can be found at Aid Consulting on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I think on
Okay.
TikTok it's Aid Consulting TT.
Okay. And that's right. She's based out of Trinidad and Tobago. But if you want to reach her, reach out to her. She is accessible. You know, the world is way more connected now. So you can get virtual coaching through this type of medium, or you can reach out to her through her social media and she'll figure out how to connect with you. A little bit about the name, just before we go. Aid, where did that come from? Or is it any significance? Any little.
Yeah, so part of what we do is train and supervise special education aides to provide the in school or in home service. So I'm supervising them and they are there kind of doing the work in, in the child's natural learning environment, right?
Gotcha.
Kind of to support that transition into school or from a special ed environment into a typical school environment, that kind of thing. Um, I also used to be an aide myself.
Nice.
So, and it just turned out to be a really cool acronym for like all of the things that I do. So, assessment, intervention, diagnostics, education, and yeah, keep together.
Oh, yo. All right. That's fine. That's fine. So big up Aid Consulting. Big up Simona. Thank you very much for coming on the channel and blessing us with your time. Let me tell y'all. Let me tell y'all. This has been a long time coming, but with these schedules, and we'll do this again. We had some technical difficulties, we'll make it work, but this is your boy Ran Inspires, the little engineer that could, and thank you for watching this on the YouTube channel, and we will connect again. Someone, I'll talk to you again soon. Peace. Yo, it's me, Ran Inspires, and if you like that video, be sure to comment below and let me know. Like it, share it with your friends and family, and stay tuned because I have a lot more content coming on this page. And as always, I'm the little engineer that could, and if I could, you could. Yeah, dig.